Hi everyone, welcome to this month's Working Artists Post. As you can see, we have a little bit of a different format this month as we have 3 working artists to introduce this month. Well, 1 to reintroduce. These are our new teaching artists who will now be joining us in our Learning and Engagement department. And before introducing them, I will introduce myself. Hello, my name is Alexis L. Silva. I use all pronouns. I am the curatorial assistant here at the Frye Art Museum, and I also facilitate and organize the Working Artists blog series. To my left here, I have Connie Fu, she, her, Linda Belt, she, her, and once again, Lila Thomas, she, her. So thank you folks for being here, and we're super excited to welcome you to the team. To start off, you 3 come from a variety of backgrounds in terms of media and practice. How do you hope to collaborate with each other during your time at the Frye?
Thanks, Alexis. So I was thinking about this, and it's, we're just starting to get to know one another, and I think it's really nice that we're approaching this with a sense of curiosity, and that's also the type of curiosity that I think we're hoping to nurture when we're working with kids and students and people that we'll be working with in our programming. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm coming into it, and it's really, really exciting.
I will add to that we all come from different backgrounds. So between our artistic backgrounds, our educational backgrounds, and so on, so it's going to be exciting to collaborate and find where our individual strengths are and use that to create a whole big project that's really collaboration.
Yeah. I also want to kind of piggyback off that, but I also I'm really excited to kind of learn more about your teaching styles and also your own art practice, and hopefully to learn from you, and I can also share that information as well. And I feel like it would create just a fun, engaging environment for our future students to learn.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks. Yeah, I think it's really important, especially in teams, to be very collaborative, and especially across mediums and across artistic practices. It's great to be collaborative, and I love that you bring up curiosity, because with working with kids, they're all curious about all kinds of stuff, so that's exciting. So my second question is, what is your favorite part about building curriculum, and what do you hope students walk away with after working with you?
Totally. Yeah, I think of building curriculum as telling a story. It's an interactive storytelling where we'll prepare a curriculum and it's sort of a skeleton or an outline, but then until you're in a room with the particular group of people that you're working with, the students, and that unique energy, you don't know exactly what the story is going to be. So I find that part fascinating, that you're kind of asking yourself how can we make this open framework for us to discover something new or to find a different aspect of what we're thinking about and talking about that is going to enlighten more or motivate us to push even further into our studies about art. So that's how I think about it.
Being a teacher for 30 years in art, developing curriculum is so broad that I think it's good to focus on the small and then broaden. So getting their curiosity, their imagination, getting them to work together as a team when they're speaking about art, learning about art, and then we can broaden that by creating these wonderful, fun art projects that they may not be able to get in the classroom. That's something that excites me, is getting them involved in art, learning about the art in the exhibits, but then practicing it and making something really fun that they can take home.
Yeah, I think for me the most exciting thing about building a curriculum is just also learning about things about myself and discovering new things and trying to find a way to be accessible for the students to grasp, and also just I love kind of creating a very fun and safe space so the students can kind of explore and have this really interesting, fun dialogue, but also kind of guiding them to find their own confidence in that and learning, and yeah.
I wanted to add, Friedrich Nietzsche has a quote about how art is so imperative today to help us get through the reality of today. And I think that's exciting to introduce that kind of concept to kids, is all this artwork can bring you joy, and then you can deal with the outside negative better.
For sure.
Agreed. Awesome, thank you. So what do you think is the value of an art museum in a city and or community, and how has a museum experience shaped your practice?
I think the most important thing is having the access to art, especially if it's like this museum, if it's a free access to art, especially for kids. For me growing up, I didn't really go to museums, and because a lot of times there was like a paywall against it. So I feel like having a free space for people to access art is really beneficial, and it also allows them to be curious about art, because I feel like sometimes art can seem inaccessible to most people, but it's for people, for everyone. So having them have a space to have dialogue and kind of think critically about the work, I think that's really valuable to have an art museum. So
Yeah, I find museums to be so dense with history and story, and it's a way of presenting stories and history that's non-linear. And it's also like every piece of art is reflective of the culture and time in which it was made, and yet it's so personal to the artist or the group of people that made that work. And so it's kind of like you're looking through a prism, like a tiny sliver that reflects on the rest of the world and all the perspectives in it. And then in a museum, being somebody that's able to like have a private moment with an object like that is just so intensely, it can be so intensely transformative, because you're like mapping your own personal history and knowledge and identity onto a piece of work that then is reflective of another person and society and culture. And so I think there's so much learning to be done, and a lot of it is abstract and intangible, but then there are tangibles as well. So I just think they're the most amazing places to spend time, really. Hands down.
I was introduced to museums early, went to the Lake Washington School District, and one of our field trips was to a museum in Seattle. I think it was Mohai at the time. And just that introduction that there were things in a place that were history and art. And I think the other piece for me, picking back on both what you said, is that we all find ourselves as well. We find our identity by looking at objects and history and all of that, and I think that's so important.
I agree. I think museums, growing up in a place where there are no museums, moving to a place where there is, especially ones that are accessible, is really life-changing and really important, and especially when museums have education or learning and engagement departments that really are focused on community outreach and education. I think it's very, very vital to any community. So I agree everything you folks are saying. Which of the many Frye exhibitions, if you've seen them, I hope you have, I'm guessing you folks have been to the Frye before, is your favorite, and why? Or what are you excited to see at the Frye in the future?
Yeah, and for me, it was the first time I ever came to the Frye Museum. I saw the Black Refractions exhibit, and first coming in, I didn't expect who was going to be in it. So just coming in and being in awe by all of these prolific Black artists that I've been looking through books and seeing them in person, and also seeing me and my identity be represented in this space was definitely transformative, and I was like, wow, this museum is kind of awesome. But I didn't know that it was Studio Museum of Harlem as well, so seeing that, it was also the last stop, I think, for that exhibit was really cool, and I was able to also learn more about other Black artists that I didn't know. And I think after that exhibit, I was like, I want to work here, so I applied working here. And yeah, so that definitely was a transformative exhibit. And I still look at the catalog today and seeing artists like Carrie James Marshall and Ramar Bearden, who also showed, and even, just being very just in awe by that. It was very a special moment for me. Yeah.
There was and I can't remember his first name right now, the Klimt. Remember, it was a lot, yes, thank you. And it was a while ago, but he's one of my favorite artists. So to be able to come see his works, and I came with a friend, so we were able to come to the opening gala, and it was just really, really special.
So I'll say that I'm really excited for the next Frye Salon exhibit that's coming in the fall. I've heard about it and I haven't seen it, but I just love the spectacle and glamour of a salon-style hanging. And I think also the connection to Emma and Charles Frye will be interesting because it's like having a collection of art is so telling of, you know, like your taste and your interest and the art that inspired you to like start this museum that now has its legacy that's like going even beyond them but still is also very closely tied. I think that'll be really, really cool to see. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah, we're excited to bring the Frye Salon back. It's quite the time. I'm trying to think of mine. I'm like, I've seen so many. I think one of my favorite ones was called Young Blood. And I'm blanking on the names of the two artists. It was a duo show, and they had like transformed all of this space into like a garden. And there was like live plants and paintings, and then there was a bunch of video and like time-based media work, and it was my first exhibition that I saw at the Frye, and it was in 2016, and I will never forget it because it was just I just was mind blown at how transformative this space can be, you know? When you boil it down, it's like 3 galleries and like 3 viewpoint spaces, but then it can become like a whole different monster, which is, I'm slowly learning being on curatorial, but it's great. Well, thank you folks so much. Oh wait, no, I have one more, sorry. So this is like the main one that I always ask everyone. Tell us your vision for the future of the Seattle arts community. You can take your time.
I think my vision still stands from our last one, just more space and access for QT BIPOC artists in Seattle. And yeah, basically things like funding, studio spaces, and also grants, or just like teaching folks how to write those things. And I think that's still important, specifically for QT BIPOC, specifically Black artists. For me, being a Black artist myself, so seeing that access is something I still stand for, to see for the vision of Seattle. And I am seeing those things, but just more of those things.
And I'm just going to add that the diversity and the access for all artists to be able to produce and to be their work to be displayed. So we see little pockets, you know, pop up with galleries but it's still pockets, right? Instead of everyone being able to produce their art and get it seen. And I mean, it's the same vision we have in Puyallup, Tacoma. It's the same, it's just helping artists further their work.
Totally, yeah, building off that, it's like, it's such a big city and so many artists and people in the artistic ecosystem live here, and there are all these like micro cultures, micro scenes, and it'd be interesting to see more bridging between communities, even across disciplines, like between music and visual art, and having this like mutual support and inspiration to start new types of venues. So like deep listening spaces where there's a really strong visual component, and like can we bring artists from different perspectives together to create these like multimedia extravaganzas, you know, that like
I love it.
really keep pushing things forward and make this just a really vibrant place, because it is. And despite all the challenges of living in a city like Seattle, I think there's just so much here to be inspired by. So.
I love that. Yeah. Well, on that note, thank you folks again for coming and meeting with me and having this panel. Thank you. And for folks who are watching, if you would like to read a little bit more about the 3 folks here, we'll have bios attached to this page at the bottom along with their headshots. So feel free to peruse through that. Make sure to go follow, socials or go look at websites to get to know these 3 new amazing teaching artists. And that wraps up our July Working Artist Post. Thank you so much.